Next on Curate, discovering what or who can bring out the artist in you.
So I joined a church guild in my church. I fell in love immediately, and that's how I started.
Pushing the boundaries of reality through the lens of a camera.
It can be raw and it can be honest, but it can also become anything you want it to be.
Combating the stigma of mental health through art.
The people here helped me believe in myself, and it really was a turning point where I began to see myself and call myself an artist.
Creating a visually stunning masterpiece while legally blind.
I spent 2 frustrating years learning how to do my art again without the eyesight. A man with a vision is never truly blind.
It's all ahead on Curate. Thanks for joining us. I'm Heather Mazzoni.
And I'm Todd Rosenlieb. Welcome to another episode of Curate. Each week we showcase creative minds from Hampton Roads and across America.
There are many ways people become artists. Some manifest their craft in times they wouldn't expect or as a way to handle life's most difficult situations. In the case of Sandy Curran of Newport News, she found her calling to fabric art when she was caring for a family member.
Most people, when you say you quilt, they're seeing a bedspread. You always get, oh, my grandmother quilted. I bet she didn't do exactly what I do.
Sometimes I feel like walking.
Quilters are trying everything. They're using found objects, they're using plastic, paper, paints. They're very venturesome, stitching on everything. It's a completely different approach. People look at our work as quilters, as fabric artists, and give it the respect that you would give to a painter, because that is not universal.
When I have so much to
I totally fell into it. I was looking for companionship for my husband's mother when she came to live with us. So I joined a church guild in my church that was older, so that she would have people her age. And the first meeting was to teach a very traditional quilt called the Baltimore album quilt. I fell in love immediately, and that's how I started.
just to see you smile at me.
I look for people that are expressing emotion. They're not just a pretty face. This piece I made, The Blood Remembers, has a poem, and they're just in the process of reading it. I didn't think anybody would. Each little piece stitched for the quilting. So that took about a year.
Ma'am, I'm tired of rolling.
The poem is written down here, and again, the title is The Blood Remembers, and this is the blood. I walk in the morning, and I think while I walk, and my thought on her kept evolving, and eventually I decided that she was looking back through her life and then through her ancestors' lives.
Through my mother's mother, torn from her helpless parents, possession sold to strangers.
Her life and her losses, her children, her father dying, all the people in her life that basically died because of prejudice.
Only innocent death, and my blood flows with agonizing pain.
Even though things are better, the pain and suffering that her family and her ancestors endured still flows in her blood, and she can't completely forget it.
But the horror and pain flows in my blood.
Today, going to the bee, and I'm going to take my daughter Erin's portrait that I'm working on, which I have been afraid to do because it's my daughter, and I don't want to mess it up. I don't know what anybody else is working on, so I'll find out. When we got the Beast started, I had a place to go where I had people that actually were interested in the same kind of quilting that I am.
Because someone said
Bees are historically a part of quilting. You know, literally pioneer women that was part of their social circle to get together as a bee and work on each other's pieces to get them finished. Hello. I have not seen you in a long time. Oh, the bee is wonderful. We're all very, very different, but we complement each other.
And remember, the challenge is that we're challenging ourselves. Right. Yeah. So we're picking things that we want.
Even though other people may not work the way I do, they understand how I work and they can give me advice. Same thing with the different other techniques. I might never want to do them, but I still can understand them. A gray, you think? Oh, that's a good idea. I like the gray.
So much
yeah.
shade. Sandy, why are you doing one of your daughter?
Because I love her. Because she's pregnant. My only child is pregnant. Yeah, you betcha. It's very supportive. Incredibly supportive. I love that. I mean, I just think that's gorgeous. My body down. The Blood Remembers is going to the American Quilt Society show in Paducah, one of the major shows in the world. This one is entered in the art category. I think my work is unusual. The emotion, that it has a message. I've never been turned down for that show, but I've never won anything either. It's always something. The fact that I got my quilting and my avocation and my hobby and my life obsession out of trying to take care of her, it really was a reward. It was a reward. It wasn't a reward that she gave me, but it was a reward that I got because of her. Boy, it's a pretty good reward for trying to make somebody else happy. You get a lot of joy out of it. No. You get a lot of joy anytime you try to make somebody happy, but I actually got all of this. Go down, old Hannah. Well.
The blood remembers.
Don't you rise no more.
For more on Sandy's works and to find out more about fabric art, visit our website, WHRO.org/curate.
A photographer in Houston, Texas, came into her art when she found herself in dire straits financially. Her art form would soon help find a path to a new peace of mind.
My relationship with the camera, it's more than just a thing. It represents a lot to me. Ready, 1, 2, 3, go. It allows you to create anything. It allows you to express anything. It can be raw and it can be honest, but it can also become anything you want it to be. It can be a fantasy. The red one, just kind of have it fanned out. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with throwing hair around, throwing fabric around. The models might hate me a little bit because muscles are gonna be hurting. You're gonna have to make this look as realistic as possible. 1, 2, 3. It's not gonna look like much right now. The magic of Photoshop will come in and we'll create a whole different scene. Pretty much all of us have probably gone through moments where bad things are happening in our lives, right? And we know it'll get better eventually, right? We know if we're having a bad day, we know tomorrow's going to be better, but we force it. So this particular image, we've got a guy, he's got a rope, it's wrapped around the moon, right? He's trying to pull that across the sky. I wanted a whole series to show, and we've named it Dark Places. When we say dark places, we're talking about physical places, like places that are scary and dark, emotionally dark places, depression, anxiety, fear, things that we've all experienced in our lives. I use the fantasy and the surreal images that I create to kind of tell a story, and it may be based on something very real, but presented in a way that's very tangible, very, it's easier to digest for people. I used to be in finance, I was academic, and in the recession I'd lost everything. And then I had a baby, and then I didn't know who I was anymore. And one day, my husband had seen, I guess, my love of photography from a distance. You know, I appreciated it in other people, but I never thought that I was capable. You're gonna have to go another step. We didn't have, you know, money to rub together, and he went and sold all his guitars, and he turned up one Christmas with this camera. If it makes you feel better, you can kind of straddle the ladder. Anytime I'm really fighting with something, I've always internalized, and this is the only thing in my life I've ever found. It allows me to get that out, because then that'll bring the ceiling down a little bit too. My motivation behind this series is a very personal one. I mean, I've personally struggled with depression, anxiety myself, most of my life. And as much as I want to help other people, this is also therapy for me. Some of the stuff looks really pretty, maybe in some capacities, but when it comes to editing, I'm really going to focus on darkening it down a little bit, bringing the emphasis on the things that are important in the shot. So it's very important to me to have an idea of the end product while I'm creating. I'm putting a lot of myself in all of these pieces, and so I hope some of that shines through.
For more on Taylor's imaginative works, again, visit the Curate website. That's WHRO.org/curate.
The stigma associated with people who struggle with mental health is difficult to overcome. In Columbus, Ohio, curators at one gallery are hoping a new exhibit will help change those attitudes for the better.
I'm an abstract expressionist, I guess you might say. I'm a painter. I've had a lot of problems with depression periodically over my life. I'm a recovering alcoholic, sober for 17 and a half years now. So there were some dark times in my life.
The Air and Fresh Air Gallery stands for Artists in Recovery. So the Fresh Air Gallery exhibits work by individuals affected by mental illness and substance use disorder. We educate the community and help end stigma against those that are experiencing stigma. The gallery is an outlet for artists to share their stories.
I have bipolar and some depression issues, and also some anger issues, and also I'm an alcoholic, been sober for a long time. I, through a variety of friends, found Fresh Air. They gave me the confidence to show, and they gave me the confidence to move on to other shows.
I was a client at Southeast, and I found out that they were having this call for artists that wanted to join a group project. And it was going to be a 6-week experience where we could learn about marketing our work, getting our work gallery ready. So it was an educational process, but it was also a real supportive process. And really before that time, I'd not thought of myself as an artist. So it was a turning point. It was a very good experience.
The current exhibit celebrates the last 10 years at Fresh Air Gallery. So this is a way for us to celebrate the history as well as encourage artists to show us what they're up to now.
I recycle, and I was flattening the boxes, you know, as I customarily do, to put in the recycling. And I looked at one day and I thought, that'd be fun to paint on. Some people think that if you paint with black, gray, beige, and white, that you're depressed, and that's not necessarily the case, for me anyway.
My landscapes and my portraits and my photography in general tend to be a little dark. And I believe that's because of the mood and the bipolar and the issues around my depression.
This is a big celebration because we're celebrating 60 exhibitions. We've showed the work of over 200 artists. We've sold over 250 pieces of art for over $65,000. And it's exciting because we sold even more tonight. And all of that money goes directly to the artists. So that is really helping artists on another level.
The people here helped me believe in myself, and it really was a turning point where I began to see myself and call myself an artist after the show that I had here. It gave me, I grew to have an acceptance of myself that I had not had before, and I think that helped me to create the art that I do today.
You'll find more on the Fresh Air Gallery in Columbus on our website, WHRO.org/curate.
An incredible story out of Colorado about overcoming adversity through art. Jim Stevens had enjoyed his craft for more than 30 years when his life took a dramatic turn. Since that time, it's become a life of rediscovery and hard work. You'll be amazed at the method he uses to create these powerful images.
Art can be done quickly and look brilliant. My work can't be done that way. The work that I do does require patience because one wrong line, one wrong dot, one misplaced scratch, and it's ruined. I paint portraits on monofilament line. Each layer I paint in a shade slightly different from the layer in front so that it grabs the eye and pulls it down and through all 8 layers. And when you look at it, no matter where you stand, the painting always gives you a different perspective back. And what happens with my work today is that people will start to walk by and then stop. And they back up and they look and they go, what? And they come around to the side, they look to the side, and when people look at them, sometimes they ask me if they're holograms. No, they're paintings. It's a painting. But I want to engage people. I want people to be interactive with the art.
I've been working with my dad to get into bigger shows that he probably wouldn't normally put himself into. I really kind of just have to tell him what it is, because if I say a monofilament painting, of course the answer is, well, what is that? And so I just have to tell him it's 129 strands across, 8 layers deep of hand-painted fishing line. And as soon as I get to the fishing line, they're like, well, wait a minute, start that over? Once his art has been accepted on its own merit, then I will tell them, oh yeah, my father's the artist, he's right over here. And they're like, wow, he's blind too?
I was shot in the head in Vietnam in 1970, and it left bullet fragments in my head. And in 1993, I was teaching, I was a professor at the University of Colorado, and the bullet fragment in my head moved and caused a stroke in my visual cortex. And I woke up at the hospital, and the surgeon looked at me and said, you're blind. My vision is pin dots just straight ahead. And I was angry for a very long time after I lost my eyesight. And my 2 youngest daughters came to me and said, Dad, you've always loved art. Why don't you get back to it?
In the beginning, it was encouragement to say that, you know, your life isn't over. Obviously, you still have something to give back. You can relearn to see, relearn to pour your own coffee, relearn to do your art.
I spent 2 frustrating years learning how to do my art again without the eyesight that an artist truly needs. But I figured it out. I switch back and forth now between 5 different lenses while I'm working. And my art eventually got me so busy, I forgot to be angry. And my problem is I enjoy too many types of art.
He's taken that leap, done so well, and then broken through those boundaries to create something new. He started by doing the VA and a lot of smaller shows, a lot of things that are disability oriented, but I felt like his work was getting much better and deserved a broader audience, and so I wanted him to start getting into more events around town.
I see an empty space, and I paint in the way that I see, so you're actually looking through empty space to see the image. All the art hangs freely in space on the strands. So that exploration of empty space is what led me from the monofilament to the abstract linears that I'm doing now, because it's a continuation of that exploration of empty space. They look at my abstracts and they realize there's the painting in front, but there's no shading. And then they realize that all the shading comes from the abstract design in the back. And it engages people. And to me, art should engage.
I think art is something that speaks to everybody on such a different level. It gives everybody such a different perspective to themselves, to the world they personally live in. I think art can heal.
It made me overcome my anger. It gave me purpose. When I get discouraged, I get frustrated, I look up and there's that sentence. And I wrote that for myself. A man with a vision is never truly blind.
Incredible story. You can find out more about any of the artists featured on this program on our website, WHRO.org/curate.
Heather, I want to thank you for having me as your co-host this week.
And thank you so much for taking time out from TR Dance in Norfolk.
And now it's time we hear from you. WHRO wants to showcase your videos on Curate. Do you have an artist profile, a music video, a short film?
If you have a project or a clip that's under 4 minutes in length, email a link to curate@WHRO.org. We'll highlight some of them throughout the series to help us curate the 757.
And do be sure to visit our Facebook page for more. And tell us what you think about the program. And speaking of your videos, we've got one to show you right now.
Let's take a look at this week's viewer video. The video was produced by Eckerd Wheeler of Eckerd Films for the Chrysler Museum's Glass Studio. This third Thursday event featured the works of visiting artist Hank Adams.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Curate. Thanks for joining us. I'm Todd Rosenleaf.
And I'm Heather Mazzoni. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Curate.